Well, tonight on the program, the country is in the midst of a fuel supply crisis, rising food prices, a wobbly shilling, a looming economy, just to name a few. What a year to be an economy. Now, just what will the 2022-2023 budget offer? We want to hear from our guests here in studio. We've got Budget Committee member and Minority Leader John Mbadi. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And a man who once sat in that Budget Committee leadership seat, former Budget Chair Kimani Ichung'wah. Welcome to the program as well.
Asante.
Gentlemen, before we get to the budget, let's talk a little bit about a situation you may have witnessed even as you drove here. People still queuing to get their fuel. As the representatives of the people, you both know very well that it's possible this evening that motorists in Kikuyu, motorists in Suba South are queuing for fuel. When they ask you what happened, what do you tell them? John Mbadi, let me start with you.
I think this afternoon there was a question in Parliament asking the same, I think, seeking a statement by Honorable Duale. So I expect the executive to give us answers to this issue. What I see is not nice. I think as a country we need order, especially in the transport sector. And that cannot happen if we have a problem with the petroleum products. The cause of the shortage, I may not have the answers. I think the executive deserves to explain to Kenyans exactly what is happening. The only thing that I think Kenyans need to appreciate, or which I find unique with Kenyans, is that there is always a default setting in our minds that whatever government says is not true. That we believe propaganda and rumor more than what we believe the government. This will definitely change because there is low confidence in our institutions. So when Azimio forms the next government, we'll definitely try to work on making Kenyans have confidence back in our institutions.
Very interesting. I wonder what that would have sounded like from you before 2018. But for you, Kimani Ichung'wah, let me hear from you.
What is it that I've said that is...
And I like that you said that Kenyans have a low confidence in their government.
We have always said it.
When you were in opposition...
I always said that we have low confidence in the...
But today you said it surprised you, and yet you previously had low confidence in government.
No. What I'm saying is that Kenyans do have low confidence in our institutions. Remember, in the Grand Coalition government, the confidence was high. We even had a department which was headed by Bitange Ndemo communicating on behalf of government continuously and consistently. And that was a creation of Raila Odinga. So that is why I'm saying Azimio government will ensure that we have a system of communicating to Kenyans more clearly so that they have confidence in our institutions.
Kimani Ichung'wah, let me give you a chance to answer the same question. What's going on?
Thank you, Hagan. It's indeed true the crisis continues. As I drove here, I was worried I'd get late because there was huge traffic jam on, I think, like Tok Road, where there's a new Total. And I only got closer and realized it's people queuing for fuel, so I overlapped. I hope they don't arrest me for overlapping when I leave the studio. Anyway, unlike my colleague John Mbadi, I will not be escapist. And I will not want to sound like an apologist for the executive. We do know, and even ourselves as members of parliament, we do know. John Mbadi here knows what happened. We have, let me educate you then if you don't. We have a consumer protection mechanism in Kenya. And I was in a funeral earlier today in Kikuyu, and the reverend who was preaching said she would not have attended the funeral had she not gone to queue for fuel in Kikuyu at midnight. And I said, and she mentioned the clip that is going around of Her Excellency President Suluhu in Tanzania, asking politicians to educate their people. And therefore, that's why I said I will not fail to educate the people on what went wrong, because that is the role I play. I think she also said,
and not to spread propaganda.
Yes, and not to spread propaganda. And that's why I'm here to educate and inform people, the Kenyans. And I'm sure Kenyans already know what happened. In Kenya, unlike Tanzania and many of our neighboring countries, we have a consumer protection mechanism that we established by statute and set up the Petroleum Development Fund, which is a fund that accumulates money from taxpayers. Every time you drive into a petrol station, you pay a few shillings and a few coins that goes into that fund to help mitigate eventualities as those that persist today. What we are all rushing to blame the Russian and Ukraine war. or any other eventuality, even foreign exchange rate fluctuations, COVID, when COVID came, you mitigate by getting money from this fund to be able to give to oil marketers so that they're able to sell their fuel at a rate or a price that is affordable to the people of Kenya. And that has been going on. What then happened is that the money that had been accumulated in this fund, Wahiga, was misappropriated, misdirected, and misapplied in all the wrong ways. Money was used from that fund. We have had, and you reported in your news last night, to some private entities. A private entity, even the Auditor General says, that is unnamed and unknown. And it's public money. Money was given to other state agencies. Some of it was used to pay pending bills owed to preferential contractors, not all contractors, because probably 90% of our roads contractors today are either on a go-slow or they have stalled many of the roads projects that are ongoing. Therefore, those that are considered preferential were paid from this fund. And that is how they wiped clean the fund. And when the shocks hit us, the external shocks hit us, then there was no money to mitigate the disaster. It's amazing. I watched the PS, I don't know, it's PS, Petroleum Energy. PS,
Petroleum and Mining.
PS, Petroleum and Mining.
Kamau.
PS Kamau yesterday. You know, in a very condescending and arrogant way, telling Kenyans that they are to blame for this crisis. They are all rushing to petrol stations to fuel up. And I don't need to repeat what he said because you could see it. And I was at pains to see that sort of condescending attitude to Kenyans, because it is not Kenyans to blame. It is squarely the government of Kenya to blame.
Let me ask
more
you this.
so, specifically, the National Treasury.
Where is Parliament in all this? And I will also want to hear from Buddy on this, because the economists I had on the show yesterday said if Parliament acted, if they enforced this Petroleum Development Levy and oversaw it as they should, we wouldn't be here.
Where is Parliament in all this? Parliament, you just told John Buddy here. Probably what you would have said in 2018 is not what he's saying today. And you actually maybe inadvertently told him when he was in opposition, meaning you also appreciate he is now in government. Parliament is in a very compromised situation, let me say so. Because many of us who sit in that house, including my brother John Buddy and myself, we sit in a house where reason and logic, Wahiga, has simply been thrown out of the window. When John Buddy raises something on the floor, instead of Kimani Ichung'wah looking at it on its own merits and demerits, we look at it in terms of who is raising it. And I remember when we were debating the political parties bill, and most recently, the Division of Revenue bill, we raised issues. And they had the audacity, those who sit in the minority, to tell us, yes, so we agree with you, but, you know, there are certain things that we will not do because it's you raising it. But the fundamental issues that we have been raising, especially if I mention something to do with the Division of Revenue, and even where we are on the fuel crisis, we have said, let the executive not abuse the use of Article 223 of the Constitution. And that's why I told you the blame squarely falls on CS Ukur Yatani.
Okay.
He has abused Article 223, spent out of the budget, and by spending out of the budget, then he has to go and borrow money from certain funds like this petroleum fund that he has borrowed money from. He's now belatedly trying to correct it by using the supplementary that we just passed last week, putting back the 34 billion that he had taken out of it.
Okay.
Not even the entire 39 billion.
And I'll stop you there so I can allow John Buddy to come in as well. John, come in as well and talk to us a bit about, from an oversight perspective, this Petroleum Development Levy funds that provides a subsidy, who oversees it? Who regulates it? Help Kenyans understand.
You know, Waiga, don't be persuaded with the reasoning of Kimani Ichung'wah that it is the Petroleum Development Levy, the misappropriation of it or misapplication of it, as he puts it, is what has caused the fuel shortage. That's a total lie. This money was misapplied way back last year. So why did we see fuel shortage or lack of petroleum products in this country? The answer is no. Actually, that time, if you don't apply that amount to regulate the prices of petroleum products, what you see is the rise or the spike in prices. It's not the shortage. There must be another reason for the shortage. There must be hoarding. there must be somewhere someone holding the product. And this is not new in Kenya. It has happened previously. And you see, Kimani Ichung'wah is telling you, I can even give him the figures. I know he doesn't have them. The Petroleum Development Levy in 2018-2019 had 2.2 billion shillings. In 2019-2020, it had, we put there 2 billion shillings. That's a total of 4.2.
Are these estimates or actual
Just a minute. Those are actual figures.
Okay.
In 2021, we put 25.9 billion shillings. Why? Because we changed. Initially, we were, for every liter of petroleum product, 40 cents was going to this fund. By an order, a government order or a legal notice, number 147 of 2020 of July, that was varied from 40 cents to 5 shillings and 40 cents. Then the spike to 25
So that's how you went from 2 billion to 25.9
billion shillings. That totals to 30.1. I'm giving those figures because I heard this leader yesterday talked of 39 billion shillings. Now, let me bring it to perspective. This amount, 18 billion, 18.1, was spent on infrastructure development. That is what he probably calls the money that went to preferential contractors. I have no facts, so I cannot vouch for that. But we questioned, as a parliament, the role of parliament is to question where the government has misapplied resources that have been budgeted for. We did question the CS Treasury, and it is in public knowledge that that answer has not been given. The government, yes, was struggling. The government was struggling to pay bills, and that is why they took the money. But they shouldn't have, because the law is very clear that this money should be used for stabilization of petroleum product prices. And so there we are in agreement, and I'm not an apologist of anyone. What I'm saying...
We'll censure them for what they've done, if it's not you and him.
Who would censure? You know, when a matter like this has been raised, there is a channel of dealing with it. It's already an audit query. It will form part of the report of Public Accounts Committee. And so what we are saying here today is that the cause of the fuel shortage certainly cannot be Petroleum Development Levy Fund. I know that already the government has spent some money to stabilize the prices. That is why there was no increase. Even the latest report from, there was no increase in prices of petroleum product. So someone somewhere, probably, and I'm just theorizing because as a matter of fact, I said from the beginning, unlike Kimani Ichung'wah, who once he joined, I don't know whether to call it opposition, has found his mouth. And now
when I left government, just say when I left government.
I don't know whether you left government because you people are confusing me. But the point is this, that I am just theorizing that, you know, Kenyans are very unique in the way they operate. Sometimes, probably there are some marketers of these oil products who, because of the war in Ukraine, are foreseeing a windfall by holding the petroleum products and denying Kenyans opportunity to get them now so that they can sell it at exorbitant prices. I am just theorizing. But telling me here, someone who has knowledge, clear knowledge of finance, economics, that because we don't have money to stabilize the prices, hence the fuel shortage. This thing did not begin yesterday, Waiga. So why is it that last year,
yes,
what we saw was a spike in the prices? And that is when we realized that there is no money for stabilizing the fuel prices. Why wasn't there a shortage?
Kimani, as you respond, lack of fuel subsidy, from a logic perspective, would result in higher fuel prices, but a shortage is what is confusing.
I think we're here. First, I understand where John Buddy is coming from, because I have been there, John, and I know how difficult it is to defend a government that is indefensible.
I'm not defending.
And that's why in 2020 I said in Parliament that I will no longer be an apologist for a government that is not delivering on its mandate. Facts are simple, and I'm happy John Buddy now agrees that the fund has been misappropriated to begin with. That is factual. The fund has been misapplied in a way that is not allowed by law. If the CS National Treasury wanted to spend money outside of that fund, it is up to the administrator of the fund, whoever it is, to spend that money in line with what is established in law, the law that created that particular fund. That has not been done. What then is our role as parliamentarians? And that's what the question you're asking. John Mbadi comes on national TV and tells you, yes, we have asked the question in Parliament, in the Budget Committee, the CS is here to answer, and you have done nothing about it. You continue to watch as the CS and the government misappropriates money that ought to help people and do nothing about it, and we pretend we are helpless. We are not helpless. But again, because of politics of the day, as I said, John Mbadi here, who is in government, will not even allow me to speak in Parliament about it. The moment I start speaking, he will be the first one to join Millie Odhiambo to shout me down, not even to listen. That being so, how does depleting the fund create a shortage? The PS was here yesterday. He told you they have gallons and millions of liters in tanks. Where is that fuel not getting to petrol stations? Simple. The oil marketers are telling you we are regulated by ERC. It's called ERC, the Energy Regulatory Commission or something. They set for them the prices at which to retail fuel at the pumping station, at the petrol station. You will not get your fuel, take it to your petrol station if you are Shell or Total or whoever else you are, Rubis of this world. Take it to the petrol station in Kikuyu and retail it at 160 shillings because ERC is regulating your pricing. Then what mandates you then to sell at the 135 that is allowed? It is getting the government subsidy from this fund. This fund has no money. That is why government, yesterday the PS told you, seated right where I'm seated, that they had now released 8.2 billion out of the 34 billion shillings that we appropriated in the supplementary appropriation bill of number 1 of 2022. Why are you releasing 8 billion? Cash flow problems. And that's maybe only Ukuri Atani or John Mbadi would tell you here that indeed we have a cash crunch in this country. And unless and until we are honest with Kenyans, first to own up to our mistakes. And that's why I said it's so wrong for a PS serving in government to have such a condescending attitude, and Amzi is trying to infect John Mbadi with the same attitude that it is a problem of Kenyans. It's like the peculiar calling habits we were once told about Kenyans. There's nothing peculiar with Kenyans going to fuel up their cars because they're in panic, because tomorrow I may not be able to report to my place of work. I am a border rider. You have just covered in your news today, border riders are not able to go to business. Fisherman John Mbadi in, I think it was Uhunya Beach or Uhunye Beach, I don't know what beach in Siaya, they cannot fend for their families because they can't motorize their boats to go and fish. If John Mbadi, you are seated here telling us that we should do nothing, we should feel nothing because we have to be here to apologize for government or tell Kenyans it is the executive. It is not the executive. We have also as parliament failed in our work when John Mbadi, instead of providing oversight of government, became an apologist for government.
Now that you've brought in parliament, how was this fund set up?
The fund is set up through statute, yeah? And
because there's some question the legality around the whole process and how it began operating even before it was gazetted and so forth. And you sit in parliament.
Well, I'll tell you, the Registrar of Political Parties today is using regulations that have not been passed by parliament. Impunity of the highest order. The same impunity persists in government, right from the top to the bottom. What is our role, me and John Mbadi there?
And
is
Parliament
ensure that
watches
impunity
it happen and
does not
nothing.
persist, because at the end of the day, it's going to punish you and me equally.
Okay, John.
But
now
today, John Mbadi will do nothing about it.
Yes, John, go ahead.
You have allowed Kimani Ichung'wah to say a lot of things that are not factual. First of all, I'm not apologetic. I'm not apologizing for anyone. I'm not sitting here for the executive. In fact, instead, it is you who should be speaking for the government. But I
left government.
But you continue addressing the media from government offices. Anyway, let me the government buildings.
Even Parliament is a government building.
But anyway, you go to Karen, you still use official residence of Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, paid for.
The office holder is there by right, not by
anyway,
a favor from
that's not the subject of discussion today. You see, Wahiga, what has Parliament done? We gave 34 billion shillings in supplementary budget to stabilize oil prices. And by the way, this was way above the Petroleum Development Fund or levy that is put. Why we did this was a projection that there is likelihood that because of the happenings in the global scene, that we are likely to have more pressures on petroleum products. Nothing to do with the shortages, but to do with the prices. On the issue of 8 billion shillings, you can't release funds at a go. The 34 billion shillings can't just be released in one day. You have to release it in bits, and that is happening with every department. So I don't know what Kimani Ichung'wah is really talking about. Can you tell us exactly the amount of money that you expected to be released? In my view,
I will tell you.
Parliament has actually given the money that is required for us to stabilize oil prices. On the issue of shortage, I think the executive deserves, and the Kenyans deserve an explanation and require explanation from the executive for the fuel shortage. I will not buy the idea that because the prices are being regulated, before the prices are set, it is an all-inclusive discussion. It is not something that is just splashed on oil marketers. That's a lie, unless you don't know how the prices are being set. So the idea that oil marketers have realized all of a sudden that they cannot supply at the pump or the petrol station at the price prescribed is another lie that Kimani Ichung'wah is pushing here for political reasons. And you know he laughs a lot, so you would think he knows everything, but I am sure even Kenyans are seeing that you are not convincing them.
John Buddy, tell us one thing before Kimani comes in. Yes. Is the fuel subsidy sustainable? Has this experience shown us that it may not be possible for our economy to shoulder that much longer?
You know, if you want a functioning economy, if we had disciplined business people, marketers in this country, we don't need these market distortions. I call it market distortion because if you allow the forces of demand and supply to operate without interference, that is the best. But because of the misbehavior of our business people, including what we are seeing today, if what Kimani Ichung'wah is saying is true, it then is confirming my fears that we have unscrupulous business people in this country, people who don't care about the welfare of other Kenyans. It is because of our tendency, even where it should be a free market economy, but you still see monopolistic tendencies. That is why we had to step in. And by creating this fund, it was necessitated by behavior of our business people. Otherwise, we would set the market free without interference, and still Kenyans would get value for money.
We do need to take our first break, but Kimani, I need to let you respond. Go ahead.
I think let me disabuse the notion by John Buddy that there are lies being told. And he knows the 31 billion he's talking about is the money that was there as at the end of the last financial year. Money continues to accumulate, even today with the shortage. Money continues to accumulate in that fund. So the 39 billion shillings is a factual figure to the last coin. Number two.
Where did that figure come from?
The books. Go to the government books, call the CS National Treasury, ask him to give you, or the administrator of the fund, ask them to give you the figure that is in there in government books.
Let
me finish, John, but just be patient. Up to even now, the fund ought to be accumulating money. I think the question we should be asking ourselves, John Buddy, Wahiga and John, was there a need to have a consumer protection fund in the first place? If we found there was need, how was that fund to be applied? Has it been applied in the right way? If it has not been applied in the right way, has it contributed to the crisis that we are in now? And if it has contributed, who is to blame and what action is to be taken? And that's why I said I will not sit here and apologize on behalf of government. And I know my friend John Buddy, and I've said it, it is difficult to defend an indefensible government like this one. I've been there. I know the challenges.
Let me ask this on behalf of Kenyans.
I will tell you this.
Let me just finish. Where have I defended the government? Explain to me. I have no idea.
You are having difficulty in seeing very simple logic.
Which is what?
That if you had money in the fund, you would be able to stabilize prices.
But you are saying
oil
there is money
marketers,
in the
can I
fund?
finish my point, my brother?
No, he's the one who has just said, Waiga,
I did not
that
interrupt
money
you.
continues to
Why
accumulate.
are you getting so agitated?
Okay. No, but
relax.
whatever you are saying does
Relax.
not make sense. Even
I know,
to you.
I know John Buddy has other issues, and therefore I don't really
Which are
press
these
him.
issues? If I have issues, money.
Just give me a minute, my brother.
Okay. Let him finish. Please.
There was need for the fund. Had we had money in the fund, if money had not been misdirected and misapplied, whatever external shocks came into our economy would have money to mitigate that. And that was the sole reasoning behind creating a fund. So that, because we knew times will come when even exchange rates just fluctuate in a crazy way, global oil prices shoot up and you have nothing to do, and therefore Kenyans will complain every time you move marketers. And I want to agree with John Buddy. Business people are there with a profit motive and to make money. Mm-hmm. And that is why you set up and establish laws to be able to regulate, I don't want to use the term greed, but the appetite for business people to make a profit. But that would not stop you from also applying the laws as they ought to be applied. Therefore, as much as you want to point fingers at oil marketers on this one, Wahiga, are as innocent as you and me.
They are not hoarding in your...
It is not hoarding.
From your purview.
You hoard, hoarding is when you hoard, expecting that prices will go up and you sell it at a profit. What they are doing now, they are unable. You have put them in a fix. You are telling them, okay, get the fuel, go sell at 135 shillings, and they'll probably make a loss. There is no business person who will allow you to make a loss. They are simply telling you, you government, you owe us money. I wish you had put the question to the PS, do you or don't you owe oil marketers? And I think you did, actually.
I did.
And he considered that they owe oil marketers.
And in fact, he said...
Why do you owe oil marketers? You should not be owing oil marketers money that should be compensating them from a fund that Kenyans have already contributed to. Number two, John Buddy cannot sit here and tell Kenyans that Parliament has now given 34 billion shillings. We are not giving money. We are appropriating money that in the first place we should not be appropriating. We should not be appropriating money into that fund because that fund it generates its own revenue.
I now want to ask this. And I want John to answer. And I want
to cure government's bad manners.
Maybe we wouldn't be here if Parliament had full access to that fund. Does Parliament have full access to that fund? Can Parliament stop Treasury from making decisions against that fund?
It's not the duty of Parliament to spend money. It is executive to spend money. It is Parliament to appropriate money and oversight. And the one way of oversighting is when a report is given to Parliament, that out of the fund, which was 30.1 billion shillings at the end of the financial year, only 1.6 billion was spent on stabilizing the petroleum prices. 18.1 billion was spent on infrastructure. Another amount was spent in the Ministry of Energy, not explained how it was spent.
Was it right to do it that way?
You know, can you now keep quiet and I speak? You know I'm your senior, so...
I'm just trying to guide you, my brother.
Have some kind of behavior.
And we do want an answer to that question, but go ahead.
Wahiga, then the question is, why did you misapply? I don't want to use the word misappropriate, because misappropriation is theft. If you give the money to pay contractors, it is not theft, but it is misapplication of the budgetary allocations. And therefore, Parliament, having realized that the executive has spent 18 billion, which was meant for regulating the prices of petroleum products, has been spent to pay for contractors who have done the roads or whatever it is. Then we are, to help and cushion Kenyans, we must appropriate money. The issue of political talks and saying, why did you do that, and asking for accountability, we can ask for accountability forever. But will Kenyans suffer as we still play our politics? And that is why Parliament appropriated money. If you are uncomfortable with the word giving, I will now use the word appropriation, because it means the same thing anyway. Appropriation is for accountants like myself, an economist. But Kenyans know we give. So Parliament has given the executive money to spend. And that money should have been applied appropriately. It wasn't. So what is happening? Kenyans are going to suffer. What should Parliament do? The next question you would have asked me, why is it that Parliament has not made sure that there is money to cushion to cushion Kenyans on high prices of oil? And that is what you have done. Is that a mistake that Parliament of Kenya has done? I don't think so, unless you want to play politics. And I didn't come here just to play politics like Imani Chungwa is doing. So, in my view, there were mistakes that the executive committed by releasing money that is meant for specific purpose, and that is to stabilize oil prices. That money was released to other commitments elsewhere. Now, what we have done as a parliament is to allocate funds for the same. The money is still being received
funds
in that
could have
fund.
been used for other purposes.
That is a fact. Money is still being received in that fund. That's a fact. But that money was not going to be enough based on what is happening in the global scene. So Kenyans need more cushioning, and that is why the president signed into law the supplementary budget, so that there is enough money. As to whether that is tied directly to the shortage that we are seeing, I still want to repeat, I don't agree. Because last year, we had a rise in petroleum prices of petroleum products. Why? Because we exhausted that fund. So there was no way that prices could be set at a reasonable rate because there was no money to cushion.
So is it possible that there are two things happening at the same time?
Wahiga, allow me to just borrow John Buddy's words.
Briefly, we've been going for a break for a while.
We exhausted the fund and therefore started accumulating money that we owed oil marketers. Number two, he has said we misapplied money from that fund. I would beg to ask John Buddy, even if I'm not the one moderating this show, was that money misapplied in line with the law? Because if we stuck to the law and if it was in line with the law, it can't be misapplied. Then we have a job, me and you, to do, other than you shouting at me in Parliament. The law, allow me to work with you to make sure that we fix the problem.
I don't have to allow you. You know,
let me finish, John Buddy. Let me
no, and it's interesting you said, allow me to work with you. Yeah, why do you need his?
Why does he need my blessing?
Because John Buddy, just like he's not allowing me to speak here, in Parliament, he sits right across where I sit. Whenever I stand to speak, him and Millie Odhiambo, I think they are detailed to shout and heckle, just to make sure that your point, you don't put your point across. So allow me then here without heckling. Comment. Allow me then here without heckling. I was saying this: if we had applied the fund in line with the law, if we had not exhausted the fund by misapplying, misdirecting, misappropriating, and I use the word misapply, misdirect, misappropriate, John Buddy, when millions of shillings are gotten from that fund, and none other than the Auditor General of the Government of Kenya, the Republic of Kenya, tells us that money has gone to an unnamed private entity. Is that misappropriation, misapplication, misdirection? It is outright theft. The millions that went to that private entity, whoever it is, I don't know, it could be myself, it could be, let me not use John Buddy, it could be you, Ahiga, I don't know, or someone else.
No, you can use them.
Or even John Buddy Limited.
So are you going to, is
that the right thing to do?
What are you going to do about it?
What we should do about it
in the institution that you sit in?
We have begun doing something about it, John Buddy. Wahiga and John Buddy. And John Buddy was not in Parliament last week when I think it's the Honorable Aden Duale who rose on a point of order on the misapplication again of Article 223. Why is it that we are getting money from this fund to pay road contractors? And I said preferential road contractors, not all road contractors.
You made that point.
Kenyans will bear me witness that close to 90% of the roads ongoing have either stalled or contractors are on a go slow. Why are we doing that is because we have misapplied again the provisions of Article 223 from the National Treasury. And you have allowed the National Treasury to spend money outside of the budget. When you spend money out of the budget, money that was not appropriated by Parliament, and the issues that were raised yesterday is some amounts that were spent last year in October, November, are being brought for post facto approval now. You spend money outside of the budget, and therefore you are left with no money to cater for the things that you ought to have catered for within the budget. Then you have to look for somewhere to pinch
Waiga.
some money from either the
Let
fuel
him finish.
levy,
He has
from
another 30
CDF,
seconds.
from where? Ask yourself, why is it that today our Council of Governors, and you had that story in your news today, are asking for 150 billion shillings out of the 370 billion that we appropriated to our county governments through the Division of Revenue Bill. Yet we have only 4 months to go. When I tell you we're in a deep crisis, in huge cash crunch, because we are all failing in doing our job, and that's why I continue
I'm glad
asking why I'm
you've
pleading.
owned up to that. So
Just
John, but
pleading with him to become a parliamentarian.
as we take this break, I've been taking this break for a while. The 34 billion is being released in tranches. Will it alleviate the challenge that Kenyans find themselves in today?
I said when I started, that I don't know what has caused the shortage. The executive needs to explain. But as to whether this amount is enough to cushion Kenyans on rising oil prices, the answer should be yes. And I want to tell you something, Wahiga. You know, Kimani is mixing up so many issues, coming up with so many issues that he ends up confusing everybody. Let me tell, except me, because I know he's lying. Let me tell you something. Article 223, Article 223 does not apply on what we are talking about. What the CS did, or what the government did, was to take money from a fund. You don't need Article 223 to spend money from a fund.
You didn't listen.
The fund is already there. No, I was listening. Unless you are not clear on what you are saying. Article 223,
for his benefit.
this money on petroleum products that was taken to other agencies was not spent under Article 223. This money was just removed.
I didn't even say that.
From,
Okay, now I'll ask you.
but where was Article 223 coming from?
I will explain to you.
No, because you don't know. So the bottom line is this. The money that was appropriated to the fund has been removed from the fund and applied in other areas where it should have not been applied. That is not right, because there is an act of parliament setting up this fund. And the act is clear on how the fund should be utilized. I hear Kimani talking about, I'm defending the government. I've not defended anybody. I am saying it is wrong to spend money that is meant for a specific purpose on other things. Yet we allocate money for those other things. If there is not enough money, then come to Parliament and explain that you don't have sufficient funds to pay for our roads. And then we would give it.
Mm-hmm.
Let me explain to him where the 223 is coming in.
Let's
after the break, maybe.
After the break. We'll come back after the break, because once you start, he'll want to try to reply and we'll be back and forth. My goodness. So I'm seeing a lot of your questions and comments. When we come back, we'll move a little bit from the fuel discussion. We'll talk a bit about agriculture and that budget. We still haven't even talked about the 2022-2023 budget, and we want to get into that on the other side. 22422 is the SMS line. #NewsNight. This is the state of the country this evening, and we are looking for answers from our leaders. We'll be right back with so much more on the other side.